Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to IIDA Summit, uh, IIDA 3.0, that is Indian Interior Design and Architecture Summit 2023. And we are back with our final and amazing, very creative workshop and interactive session of the day. So before I go ahead with introducing you the speaker for the session, let me introduce you to the topic of the day and why we feel that it needs to be addressed to our community. So in the digital age, creative expression has found new avenues through the fusion of various art forms. And one such captivating merger is the world of architectural webcomics and illustrations. And these unique mediums merge the principles of architecture with the storytelling prowess in comics, resulting in a captivating and thought provoking form of artistic expression. And this particular session will delve into the fascinating realm where architecture and webcomics converge, exploring how this innovative fusion creates a space for architectural storytelling, education, and artistic experimentation. So, architectural webcomics can allow architects and artists to convey complex architectural ideas and concepts through visual storytelling. And through dynamic illustrations and carefully crafted narratives, architects can breathe life into their designs and engage a broader audience. So, creators can also harness the power of storytelling to evoke a range of emotions in the audience, and from awe to inspiration to contemplation and even empathy. So, this emotional resonance can help bridge the gap between the architects and the general public, fostering a deeper appreciation for the built environment. And architectural webcomics actually represents a very fascinating intersection of architecture and storytelling. It offers a fresh perspective on architectural communication, education, and as I mentioned, artistic exploration. So by combining all these, factors and all these innovative mediums, it contributes to a broader appreciation for architecture and its profound impact on society. And as technology continues to evolve, so the potential for these creative forms will also shape the way that we perceive, interact with, and understand the built environment. And the fusion of architecture and webcomics is a testament to the never ending boundaries of human creativity in the digital age. So, on this note, I would like to introduce our speaker for the session, architect Anuj Kale, founding partner at Leewardists, for an interactive session on architectural webcomics and illustration. Anuj is an architect and an urban designer turned into comic writer who likes to tell stories about the built environment. Warm welcome to IDA 3.0, Anuj, and really awaiting to hear your, creative and your creative journey and how it shaped you and how you tell stories to thousands of your followers, including myself. And I think we spoke over call once, and I mentioned how I've been following your page and your work even since I was in college, and it still is captivating even when I'm a professional. So I think it kind of shows how impactful this kind of art form is. So we would really love to know more about it and more from you.
Okay, yeah, I think that was a very comprehensive definition of what we do. Sometimes we also find it difficult to explain what we do. When we meet people who are non-architects, we just tell them that we are architects because we don't want to dwell into the idea that we make comics because they would never understand. And when we meet architects, then we try to tell, and based on which type of architect, we tell them what we do. We it's sometimes very difficult to explain, and we see the way we explain is through our comics. So sometimes verbally it's very difficult to explain to people. So thank you for the amazing definition of what we do here at Leewardists. And yeah, I think I can talk more with the presentation. I think that's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
definitely.
So yes, I mean it's been long since I mean we've talked to a professional crowd because usually we are talking in colleges and most of our work is revolving around The young architect, I would say that the young architect or the young practitioner or the young graduate who is facing a lot of issues in the architecture fraternity. And like I said, this is after a long time we have been talking in front of a professional crowd, because I mean, sometimes it's very difficult because we also have to be very true to what the profession is offering, and sometimes we can be little harsh towards the profession also. I agree, and that is one of the reasons why people also don't call us. I mean, that's as simple as that. Usually there is like people either booing us or laughing. So I think yeah, it's a good advantage that we are online. That at least there's no booing. But yeah, we we we. I mean, of course, I'll start with the presentation. So this is like a collage which we usually show. Some of these comics which you've seen on the screen are one of the very initial comics which actually made us, I would say not popular. It's a very wrong term. I would say these are the six comics which helped us tell a story, and it made us reach to a certain amount of people. And for the first time, there was a voice of an architect, which could be seen, and people were relating to it. So if you want to be very exact, this is 2018 or 2017, I guess. Uh, of course, I mean some of these comics do not make sense right now. Some of them still are relevant, but yeah, this is a collage of what we started with. We always have this question about, are we architects or are we designers? I think we are both, but we prefer that, you know, when a student comes into architecture, the first year is mostly design. The idea of design is what has been explained. So we usually focus that, let's talk about designers first, and then of course into whatever um, specialization we are, architecture, interior design, etc., etc. So we are designers, and like we are told to innovate a lot. When we are in the school or even in the profession, we have to be innovative. We have to design and eventually make it work, and so that it could be there, on the ground. So this process, we are very happy about it, and we 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 face this in college, in the profession. Um, I mean, although we don't practice architecture, that is something which we wanted to tell, because we wanted to, but we do this full time, and there's no such thing called as 50-50. So it's either this or that. So we thought, let's go on this side. So when we were pursuing our design education, so when I say we, it's of course a team, but like me, Anuj Kale and Shreya Khandekar, both of us are partners at Leewardists. So when we were pursuing our design education, we had a very simple question, which I think all of you also had. We draw a lot. I mean, we draw, or we are forced to draw. Sometimes we are forced to draw. Sometimes we like drawing. But yeah, in essence, we have to draw in the architecture school. And we are also, we also have to talk a lot. Why? Because we have to defend our work in, even in college, or even if you're an architect. So these two things are something which you have to, if you don't like it, you are forced to learn it. So we draw a lot, we talk also a lot. And I did my master's in urban design, and then we started drawing even more complex things. Like already the plan and the sections were very difficult for my mom to understand. Now we started making drawings in urban design which are even more complex for the common audience to understand. And that is where the question which arises, that how much does my mother understand? So, my mother has always been the testing of what we are doing. She can tell it if she understood or not. Yeah, I mean, everybody can do this. If your mom or your grandmother or your grandfather or your father can understand what you've done in your school or your project, then that makes sense, right? Because eventually it is her or my father. I'm not talking about my father because I'm not being sexist. My father is already an architect, so my mother does not know much about architecture. So I thought she's the best person um, to go to understand if whatever we are doing in architecture, is it making sense? Can she understand at least something what I have drawn in the school? So the answer was mostly no, because usually when we show something to our parents, they're like, ah, this is good work. I mean, this is good artwork for them, but they don't understand maybe the essence of what is the thought process, how much it's going to impact. Like the essence of the design is somewhere lost when I was showing it to my mom. So the question always was there that I can make a fool of my professors. I can do anything in the school, but if my mom does not understand it eventually boils down to that the client, who's a common person who does not know much about architecture. I mean, I'm pretty sure they know a lot now, but whatever is your thought, how much is it exactly understood by the common person is something which we had. Because we always give our presentations to jury members, bureaucrats, politicians, like we always have these group of elite people who already have a knowledge, or we are always giving presentations to a certain group of people. But what about the common masses, like my mom or my grandfather or my grandmother, who are maybe not able to understand what I'm doing? I mean, isn't it better to present it to my mother? I mean, we were just thinking, is it a better way to give a jury to my mom? I mean, it was just a thought, but yeah, that's something which catched upon, and we eventually thought, let's make something for the masses. I know it's still a very long way to go. I mean, it's easy to say that whatever we are making, everybody's understanding. It's still not there, but the idea is that whatever we make, can it be understood by common people? Can they at least know what an architect is, or can they at least know what is the term of an architect? It's not architecture, it's architect. At least that, through some of the comics or some of the writings which we do. So that was the intent, and of course the logo which you see is the one which we started in 2016, and then later on we got bored with it because it was too much. I mean, of course, I mean, times change and the design also changes a lot, and then we thought that we are very happy with this. I mean, there's a lot of things happening in the logo, but I think that's fine. uh, so when we talk about masses, like in urban design, we make a lot of proposals about the mass, right? It's not uh, maybe just one or two clients. It's a lot of clients who are going to use that space. There's a lot of people who are going to be temporarily over there. Some of them are going to be permanent, etc. So it's a very complex client which we have when we are doing urban design. So, when you're in college, you're always making these sketches about pedestrianization. How do you want to change the world? Every student wants to change the world through their thesis, etc. So, I also wanted to change the world, and then we made this small sketch of pedestrianization. Just a simple sketch. And then I thought later, when Leewardists was coming up, we thought, can we show this to somebody who does not know anything about urban design? Can we just show this drawing? So the first person who came to my house was an electrician, because my dad is an architect. So we thought, let's show this drawing to that person. And basically, it was just a graphic for him. It was just green dots, some patches. And the best part was that the cars which I drew, because we like to innovate with our um, drawings when we are in the architecture or the urban design school. So the cars were actually switches for them. So when they told us that, of course I got angry, because that's what we usually are. Like, we think that the architects are on the top of the pedestal, but then that also humbled us down into thinking that it's still a far fetched dream to make people understand that this is a proposal for them. But the language which we're using, the language as in the visual language, we are very proud of our visual language. When we are in the school, we always talk about that we architects have a visual language, but we still feel that, uh, of course, it's necessary. The language which we have is necessary, but can there be something more? Is one of the questions which we had. So, at that time, very naively, we just thought, can there be an infographic? Like, can there be like an illustration? Can there be a story about pedestrianization which I can talk to people? I mean, of course, we never made it, but it's just a thought which came to our mind. Can it be like a story which I can narrate to anybody who does not know about pedestrianization? So, of course, I mean, in between all of this, we thought, Leewardist is something which we will be called. I don't know if anybody remembers their geography lessons from school. A hill. okay, why am I focusing on a hill? Because we come from a town which is called Nasik, which is 200 kilometers away from Mumbai, and it has a very good topography, and it has a lot of hills around the Godavari river. So it's surrounded by a lot of hills. So that's one of the things which we have been seeing from our childhood. So hills was something which were very important part of our childhood, and when we looked more towards it, we understood that the hill always has two sides. When we even used to go for trekking, we always understood that there is always a green patch, a very good to look at patch, and there was always a patch which was always barren and always not very good to look at. So like we architects always want to try to make sense and make everything like a concept. This is my concept. We try to complicate things. This is what I also did when we started Leewardists. And I think that in that way, this talks about the leeward side is the side where usually it's not it does not have a lot of wind and rain and even sun. So that's why it's barren. So we thought, the architecture fraternity is also like this hill where we are very important part of um, the community, the city, but nobody knows what we do. So we are on the leeward side of the hill, and we are equally important for the entire hill, and in fact for the entire geography of that um, area. But nobody knows what we do. So we thought, let's put light and sun and rain, and like this is a. Sometimes when I start talking about why we named ourselves Leewardists, I find it too complex, but that's how it is. We just want to put light and rain on the side where we are architects. We are a very important part of the city, but we need to put some light on that issue that we are important, and architects and urban designers can actually create a certain change. So this also further dwelled into the idea of how can we create the change, how can we put light. So for that, we had to find the perfect tool. So when we talk about tool, there are many tools, but the one which was very deep rooted in our culture, me and Shreya's both of our childhoods, was something where we we thought of narrating stories. Like I previously also mentioned, it's all about telling a good story. Uh, of course, the presentation which you're looking at might not be a very good story because, like I said, we are not very good with verbal stories, but we are very good with that's what we feel. We are good with stories which we can narrate it like a movie, like a short film, right? We always look at our comics as short films, like short stories, sometimes even longer stories. But of course, social media does not allow you to put longer stories. But we always look at our comics or memes, whatever you want to call it, as stories which can be converted into an animation, which can be converted into a movie. Of course, like Akshay Kumar has been the actor has been making a lot of movies about different issues. So why not an architect? Maybe let's make a movie about an architect. But of course, it's not a very catchy subject which people would want to know. But if we tell it in the right way, it can be a blockbuster. But that's a dream. So yes, we wanted to narrate stories to people, and at the same time, I think what Kamalaja also mentioned, one thing was I would not say missing. It's something which um, is underrated, but it's a very important part of our life, which is laughter, which is humor. We definitely feel that apart from telling a good story, humor is something which is definitely um, something which is part of our life every day. I mean, I'm also trying hard to make you laugh, although I cannot. But everybody's trying to make each other laugh. Or if you're even on social media, you don't want to be sad. I mean, the other theory is that the more you are on social media, you get more sad. But that's not the point. The point is, you want to laugh, you want to smile every day, and there's no laughter in architecture. To be very honest, this is it has become a very serious profession, and it still is. Even though people are talking about that, it's now becoming more inclusive. It still has that seriousness. Like, why can't we laugh about it? Like, that's a very simple question. Let's laugh about it. So that was something which we really wanted, that humor should be there. We never believed that we are good. we are humorous people. I don't know that. I mean, we still don't know, but we believe that that is something which will definitely create a difference. Humor is something which can connect an issue which we face in Nasik. It connects to somebody in Colombia, in South America. And humor is that language which actually connects throughout the world without dialogues, without language. It can actually connect to anybody in the whole world, and that's what is happening. And we could see that laughter is one of the most important factors of the stories which we tell. Of course, it's very difficult because sometimes people don't get the joke. Humor and narration, these two components were very evident because, to be very honest, we were very big comic book fans from our childhood. Comic book is a very underrated, or comic, the word is a very underrated and a very misused word. Uh, there was a revolution in the 80s, which is called punk, and that is where the idea of comics being more than just Marvel and DC, that was a revolution, and they wanted to talk about the real issues through comics. There is a person called Joe Sacco who actually does comic journalism. He writes stories about different cities like Jerusalem, Gaza, Gaza, and then Bosnia. He talks about, his job is to do journalism through comics. So, of course, this is not a lecture about what is comics and how you should look at it, but definitely it is something more. It has definitely changed in the past 4 to 5 years. That is what we've also seen, that the idea of comics is now even more. The idea of animation is also even more than what it used to be. Like Rick and Morty or BoJack Horseman are some of the animations which are definitely for a different audience. So they have changed the way how comics or animation have been looked upon. I'm talking about 1980s. It has started from there. It still is evolving, but I'm just saying that comics is something which definitely needs a different session. Maybe next time I can talk about that. But yeah, let's talk about humor and narration. uh, we can find humor in our daily life. Like I already mentioned, humor is there in our life. It is in our movies, it is in our newspaper columns. Everybody knows the RK Lakshman column, the common man, the famous common man, the advertisements which we see, the advertisement which I recently remember is the, I don't know if I can ask a question to the audience, but yeah, if you could remember one ad which is currently happening and you remember, it is the cred ad, right? The cred ads are the ones which are actually very humorous, and that is the only one. I don't know what they sell, but I just know that they can make me laugh. And sometimes even your coffee, right? Like this misspell your name, etc. Humor is everywhere. Like it's there. You cannot ignore it. You want it. Uh, when two friends talk to each other, they don't talk in a. They talk. They want to laugh. Like I become friends so that I can have a smile on my face. I can laugh the entire day. It starts from there. It starts from your closed ones. So humor is part of your life. And when I talk about narrations, it's also been part of our life through our mythological stories, Amar Chitra Katha, Tinkle, fables and fictions like Aesop fables or Panchatantra. These stories about how the crow took out the water. Every story has a learning in the end, like don't tell lies or whatever, like whatever the essence of the story is. But yeah, these are also very interesting because even in our comics, in the end, we want to leave it up to the audience. Of course, we don't want to tell that don't do this or that. It's a very tricky world where the story has to end as a catalyst rather than saying that this is right or this is wrong. Because we also feel that, I don't know if there has been a journalist panel. uh, I might have not seen it, but we also believe that we are journalists because the idea of a journalist is to actually ask the right question and to leave it at a point where the audience can decide what is right and wrong. So we don't feel that sometimes journalism is only talking about good things about architects or the buildings. Have I seen a column where something bad is written about an architecture, sorry, a building or an architect, that there's some criticism which is happening? The only one which I could see recently is about the internship issues which is happening. So that's something which we also feel that our job is to ask the right questions and the tough questions and leave it completely up to the audience to judge what they feel is right and wrong. But I think, yeah. So the point is, we see it every day. Narration is there, humor is there. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And why can't we use it to express our ideas or create awareness, or even have normal conversation? Like I said, you have conversation with your friends. It requires a storytelling skill, which everybody in the world has. Because if you're talking with your friend, you will narrate it in a different way, or with your parents, etc., and you will have humor in it. So narration and humor is already there, existing in everybody's lives. So this tool of humor and narration is something which we call, so people can call it comics. For us, it is a story which has a good narration, and of course, if there is a possibility, there has to be humor in it. So when you go to the library, the of course you pick up a book which of course does not have a lot of text. I mean, that is how I function. So I never picked a book which had so much text, so I always wanted an image to it so that I can relate to the text which was there. So of course, when you flip the book, you understand that there are no images and you can leave that book. So it starts from that basic idea of going to the library. Like, I'm not a very good reader, so I need images. So it's maybe many of the people who are watching it also relate to it, that sometimes you need images to correlate to the text. So that is also what I also felt. But when you add some humor element to it, you'll remember it for the rest of your life. Like, whenever there is a comic which has a humorous ending or a humor quotient to it which is very high, it is always remembered by people, because sometimes we also feel that maybe the audience does not remember one of the comics, but they remember it, and they've even redrawn it like in front of us. So we felt always that the ones which have the humor quotient at a very high level, I always say that it's very difficult to make people laugh, but once we do it, it stays with their mind for almost forever. So you remember it for a longer time, if possible, for the rest of your life. So humor and sarcasm is something which is very important, and at the same time, it's very hard also, because sometimes we also have sarcastic opinions about certain things. But sarcasm is a very tricky job. You Sometimes people get it, sometimes they don't get it, and then they ask in the comments what is the joke here, and then we feel sad, of course. So sarcasm is something which we really love, but sometimes people don't get it. But I think that's part of the process, and we really want to tell stories which have humor and sarcasm to it. And then when we started to make comics, we thought that, when we wanted to tell stories, we thought that we had to have, of course, a formula, right? We are trained to not do something for a longer run. We always look for something which has immediate results. But in this initiative, we thought, no, let's make something which we can do it for the rest of our lives. Why are we thinking that, because the education and everything trains us to give a product, like tell a good story and it will maybe work. But we thought, before telling a good story, we have to have certain things which become part of the brand, right? For example, a character or a series of characters which will definitely be part of it, and they people will relate to them rather than the stories. So they'll not remember the story, they'll remember the story of that relatable person or the character. So, I mean, of course, these four images say a lot. I know I'm showing a lot of millennial images because, I mean, both of us are millennial. So these are very millennial characters. Of course, there can be very more relatable characters, but this is something which we've grown up with. So I thought, why not show that? So yeah, every character says a certain thing. Every character has a certain a persona, or when you look at certain, like Supandi, like, what's going to happen, and you sometimes also relate to it. So all these characters have been carefully dealt and designed in a way. When I talk about design, it does not mean the illustration. I'm talking about the design of their character. Their What are they? Where are they from? What is their age, etc., etc., and a lot of psychological things which we feel can relate to the audience. And of course, we also tried to make the first characters. Of course, like I mentioned, we have a series of characters, but the first one which we made was something like this. You know, during this 2010 to 20, there was this, we could see a lot of architects with beard. We still do that. We still see a lot of architects with a, huge ass beard. And, you know, I thought, why not? Because I admired Neelkanth Chaya. In fact, Shreya also, both of us admire Neelkanth Chaya as an educator. So we thought, let's have something like a big beard because it looks cool. And but then we did some sketches, and the beard was still there. If you could see, the beard is still there. But then my mom said that, "Arey, please take the beard out. It does not look good." So we said, okay, let's make it like a stubble because okay, we still wanted a beard, but it's like a very thin thing. But this is one of the initial sketches from 2016, 15. I mean, I know it has even evolved more, but yeah. Then we thought, let's introduce the character with what he is like what the type of architect. So we thought, let's do a trend of the anatomy of an architect, where we talk about what is this character made up of. So if you could see the brain, it has two sides. One is the idea generator device, which is dreaming of Pritzker prize, and the other is the idea copier device. So the brain functions in two ways. One says that you want to do something original, and sometimes it also tells you that Pinterest is there. So that's how we function, right? It always sways with these two worlds. And like, I know it's a still a very stereotype thing because it was done in 2016. I know there will be a lot of comments. We still don't publish this. It's just part of the story at that time. Uh, yeah, maybe trying to not stereotype. Yeah, maybe stereotype and show what the architect does and thinks in a way. Then there were two versions. One, of course, the architecture student version, and the same architect, the same student who eventually became an architect. So this happens, right? Like, of course, it also depends on your practice that if you can become this. Otherwise, even I've seen architects who have their own practice, which is basically us, and they're still the same. So, I mean, you can still be the same. No offense against these people. You can be exactly how you want. But there are certain people who look like an architect or they want to look like an architect. So, yeah, we try to design how the student will eventually also become an architect. So while designing, we also had one more thing that how will we tell stories or what are we going to talk about? So of course, this is not a formula, it's just a very basic thing. We just thought whatever issue we want to talk about, and you just add the X with anything like urban design plus car. So what does car play a role in the city planning or the urban design, or if they even talk about architects and cars. So that means that they cannot afford a car, maybe that. So so it can be anything, like just put a word and you can just do anything you want in the comic. So let's see maybe some of the examples. So these are, of course, I'm going to show a lot of initial work. Maybe some of you might have not even seen this. So student life, right? Let's start with student life because all of us over here, even in the panel, and of course the people who are watching and the students, everybody has been a student in their life. So we made this very dark comic initially where you're in a cocoon in the first year, you get out of the cocoon, you become a butterfly, and then somebody snaps your wings. Again, very dark, not to be shown to the students, but something which we did, and of course we published it, but then we did not think of publishing it again because then people start saying, "Hey, you are being very negative." But okay, chalo, it's there. So we thought, okay, let's make something more. So we thought, let's make an evolution of an architecture student like the Darwin's theory, like how the evolution of the human. So they evolve into becoming a student, and then they start eventually sleeping on the same desk. You work on your project the whole night when you're in your school. You show it to your professor. The professor says, "Is this your design?" And you're like, "Yes, it is. It looks like you have made this in 5 minutes." And then, of course, you're sad. So all of this is, of course, like it is 2016 or 15, but it's still relevant. Like this is pan world, like not even pan India or pan whatever, like state. It's pan world. So it 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 of course this comic also at that time created a like a good. The people feel that whatever is happening to me is happening to everybody in the world. A lot of our messages, in fact, 80 to 90% of our messages are this only, where after looking at the comic, I felt that I'm not the only one who's suffering. So that just made them feel a little better for that moment, or maybe just help them push. Okay, it's normal that maybe the design is rejected, maybe the design has got a redo, etc. They have accepted that okay, it's an everybody's thing. In fact, even us, both of us, me and Surya, we faced this. So it's part of our life, and if it makes somebody feel better, then okay, that's something which we feel that is an award for us, because there is no award for us actually. So these are the only awards which we get, where actually students or young professional messages that I felt good because this is happening to everybody in the world. So thank you for that. So we feel really, really like proud when we have messages like these. So everybody has faced a design review. When we show our work, you get a criticism from your professor. So what happens, but what it actually looks like. So it actually looks like this. And it feels like this also. I mean, it's not only about looking, it's about feeling also. We had a lot of problems. You had to sell your kidney for paying the stationery bill and the prints bill. Sometimes your professor asks to bring your previous sheets and you don't know where they are. That's how we perform. That's how we, have our life managed. I used to hate models. So I used actually love, but then we thought, let's show both of them. Somebody's liking it, and then somebody's saying that let's get over with it. Reaching the college has always been a challenge with the work which you have. You have to bring a lot of stuff for your submissions, and it's always a hassle reaching there on time with everything intact. You always have your friends who backstab at you. You discuss the previous night that you only bring one sheet, I'll also bring one sheet, and then she brings everything. Everybody has faced it. It's 2000. I mean, I graduated in 2010. So I graduated in 2018. I mean, it's still the same. This has happened, and it will keep on going, continuing for the rest of the lives. We go to historical places, or like houses, and we start measuring things. Everybody gets a redo, of course. Everybody is asked where the north is. Everybody gets tired when they have finished the submission. We made this comic 4 5 years back, where the student is like the soldier who's trying to face the jury with, of course, the ammunition which they have, the sketches, section plan, 3D, etc. The jury is like, oh my god, this person has everything, and then they have this one last thing. That's what happens. So we just tried random weird things. You have an idea, of course. So we there was a time where we tried a lot of weird things like these. Then of course we again started to do some more weird things. Of course, with collaborators, which we had very very good collaborators we have got in our entire tenure of Leewardists. In fact, we've also collaborated with the architecture dairy, and we did something, but I think I'll not talk about it. But yeah, we've been fortunate to have good collaborators around us, and we did this one with one of the collaborators where we made the design softwares into people. Like the Photoshop for us is like this French artist who has his best work untitled 1.phd. Lumion is the popular software, so we made it into that. AutoCAD is like this professional, even BIM maybe, but yeah, AutoCAD is that professional person. Rhino is, of course, Rhino. SketchUp is the cool, laid back dude who will make your, you know, he will make your design work, definitely. And then we thought everybody's invited to the party, but then there are three invites who are not acceptable. It is the Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So we made this comic where Yeah, I mean, it's just something weird which we tried. Expectation. Everybody has a lot of expectation in life. First year, you design something and then you evolve and you evolve and you evolve into the fifth year thesis, which changes the world. And then after graduation, you have to work on a toilet. So, yeah, you expect something, you get something different. I'm not saying it's bad, it's part of the process. Of course, this is the sketch which had, we are talking here, all of us are talking here today because of this sketch. I'll just show you the sketch. It's basically the concept sketch of an architect after meeting with client, after making the working drawings, and after construction. This is something which has not only touched the entire architecture fraternity, but also other professions who also have the same process of how the original idea is eventually converted into something which works on the site. And there are many players in between which make it a certain way. So this is something which at that time garnered a lot of views and of course shares, etc., on Facebook, etc. And it really made us think that, like, I think it's time we do this full time, right? I mean, there's a moment where, I mean, of course, we have done architecture, so we wanted to be an architect. But then, when you do something else, when you diversify a bit, it sometimes is difficult in terms of being confident every time. And these are the markers or the catalysts which tell us that it's not about the number of shares or the number of likes. It's about people commenting and uh, sir, is there like something which happened? Okay. Am I good? Is there like something happening? Yeah, I think I'm good. Sorry, I just wanted to check if. So yeah, long story short, this sketch has made us has motivated us a lot in terms of even today, where we want to continue doing this for the rest of your life. So this is one of those sketches. The architect. So we also thought how different people, different consultants will design. So if the architect would design, of course, it would be like this. The landscape architect, the structural consultant, firefighting consultant, the sustainable consultant, and of course, the government. Work has not started till yet. So yeah, we thought let's give other people roles to design. Critical overview. I mean, every comic is a critical overview. There are no special comics which is a critical overview. Every comic has a certain overview and a certain critique about something. Like, of course, this really talks about something which it's very simple. Like, there's no rocket science in this. I don't have to explain this, but this is again one of those comics which actually went beyond the fraternity. It went beyond the architecture community, and it started spreading into people where they were relating to it. And we thought it's a very simple way to talk about identity and the um, the monotony of the new typologies which are there. Even in architecture, we feel that most of the buildings um, by a lot of architects still feel the same. Like we cannot identify. Again, I'm being harsh, but that's something which maybe is subjective. But yeah, we made this comic and it went beyond. We also made this comic where we wanted to let the audience interpret what they see. Instead of telling anything, we just showed them two images and then everybody commented in their own way what they feel. Somebody commented that this is chaos, this is neat. Somebody said that this is exactly life, and the architect has a certain role and then it is up to the user to take it forward, which is also correct. I mean, it's subjective. So we also tried different comics where we could see certain interpretations, and of course we also wanted to tell people that social media is not a very bad place. It's a good place where you can actually have good debates and discussions, and it really did, and it really still, even today, it still has that. The comics which we try to make has, of course, both the opinions, because we want the audience to tell what they feel about it. So that's something we always looked at social media. We did not look it as a place which like it's only about likes or shares. It's about also having a healthy discussion. Although you can also debate that comments also help you in reaching out your comic more. Yeah, that's correct. But yeah, I mean, let's move forward. Colleges. I mean, of course. I mean, I can skip through this, but yeah, we thought let's talk about colleges, how the other professors versus our professors. This looks like, of course, a mix of many architects, which we've seen around the world. Marks for us are just passing like 40, 50, 160 is like a lot for us. For others, it's like 90, 80, etc. The notice boards, we have a different life. College timings, we're always late, of course. The classrooms, we have a different way of making our own desk or designing our own desk or orienting them in a different way. It's like, I'm not saying we are better than them. They have a different life. We have a different life. The events which we have, but some of the people have commented that some of our events are also like starting to become like engineering college event management events. But again, that's debatable. The type of dresses which we wear. I mean, most of our dresses are worn a lot of times throughout the week. So I think there is no like dress code for us. And when after graduation they are placed and we are still figuring out our life, and it's fine, nothing negative about it. We are still figuring out because 5 years are not enough for us to figure out our life. So it's okay. You can chill after 5 years. Left-handed architects. We made this again a very weird comic. I know there might not be a lot of left-handed audiences. Maybe if there is somebody who can just raise their hands or write a comment if they can. But we made a comic for left-handed. We really wanted to talk about that minority who really face a lot. We had a good employee, child. I forgot her name. She was a lefty, so she made this comic that how it's very difficult to even sit to cut uh, placing the T scale, they work in a different way. So, our desks are not made for that. They always have a smudged sketch. The measuring tape is a disaster for them. Sketching also is a pain for them. And of course, like sitting next to each other. That's, I think, one of the most. But yeah, I mean, this the point was to also so that there's a small group of people or a minority who have also faced something. And yeah, trust me, this also went viral. So we thought it's only for a few people, but this also got appreciated. So because yeah, I mean, it's relatable to that audience. Juries, things said in an architecture jury, or even like we thought let's talk about this important topic, which is like nobody teaches how to talk. I don't know. I mean, when we were in college, we were not. So this has become a comic for us. We always try to use these contrasting words, even as architects, built, unbuilt, negative, positive, binary, non-binary, solid, void. We do that, like, the contrast of words. We use sustainable as a word a lot. Sustainable has become part of the dictionary for architects, where if we don't use the word sustainable, it means that there is some problem in the design. So I think sustainable has become like a word which will be repeated, I think, at least 10 times in a presentation. Everybody has a word for the concept like sustainability, green building. My concept is an apple. Some there we've even seen people. My concept is no concept. Like that can also be like yeah, it's fine. And sometimes in the jury, the two faculties also start fighting, or they start having a debate, which is okay. And sometimes the faculties are also like blame that they never come to the class. Sometimes people are in a hurry. You've done a lot of work, but then the jury wants to make it quick. There are, of course, I think I was also one of this person. We always don't know what to talk, so we start saying that the plan is here and the section is there, and we move in closely and we say here is the entrance. I think this was the most funniest thing which we've faced, and we have done it and we have seen it and we are laughing. Although we are also doing the same thing, but this is something which has happened throughout. Sites, like everybody has sites, so we thought let's do something on sites in architecture. Sometimes there's a very easy site, there's an interior site, there's a contour and a challenging site, There are weird sites, definitely. There is an ideal site which actually nobody ever gets. So there is no such thing called as actually ideal site. The non-existent site, which means like you cannot do anything. You just have to follow the rules. The huge site where sometimes it's very difficult to even know where to start. And of course, now you have these competitions, Mars, Moon, etc., outer space, etc. So, the sites are now going beyond. And of course, the fudge site, you always get these sites. If you could see the diagrams closely, there are these angles given, and you eventually make it a fudge site. These are done mostly by the thesis students. They eventually make it 90-90-90 that this is exactly how it is supposed to be. Of course, this only happens in college. There's a disclaimer. This act of crime is only done by thesis students. Of course, in profession, you cannot do this. So yeah, that's the disclaimer. Frustration, of course, every now and then we are frustrated with something. Like people asking us, "What do you do?" We say, "I'm an architect." Of course, I mean, we're proud. And then they ask, like, "What do you do?" And then you try to explain something about your role, like what you do, etc. And after listening thoroughly what you said, they say, "Oh, you're civil engineer," and then you become this. So yeah, there are a lot of things an architect is frustrated with. This is one of them, and it becomes sometimes frustrating, sometimes it becomes normal. We also did one series somewhere in 2018 where we started looking at buildings in a certain way. So before architecture, we see this as the world, and suddenly after architecture, the entire world has changed. You see textures, you see levels, you see the cone of vision, etc. So you start looking at proportion, scale, etc. So your life changes. So we also did like I mentioned, the architect tries to look at different things. So they go to the site, Taj Mahal. So how common people see Taj Mahal? They see it as the wonder of the world. How couples see Taj Mahal, of course. How stereotype tourists see Taj Mahal, they do that stuff. And of course, how architects see Taj Mahal. I mean, we're hardwired. That's, I think, what I would say. How an architect sees a tree, for a common person, it's a very big tree, nice tree. For children, it's uh, something to play. For activists, it's trying to save it. For real estate developers, there is no tree. They don't see any tree. They see a building. And a woodcutter sees it like economy, income, but the architect sees the tree as something which has to be at the center of, that nature is at the center and the design revolves around. So yeah, these are some of the series which we did in 18, I think. And then, yeah, I mean, it worked, and it tried to show different ways of how we function. That's simple as that. Things we are afraid to talk about. Yeah, I mean, this is something which we did in 2018, sorry, 2020, when I think uh, architect Amrita Balal from Delhi and architect Vinita from Design Jatra, Maharashtra. They shared some of their opinions, and of course, Shreya. I mean, all four of us brainstormed this into a comic about what women face in architecture. Like the professors trying to stereotype by that you all women design it girls only, right? Like that's something which we've also faced. And if a certain person uses pink, they immediately say, "Are you a girl?" Or like they try to have gender stereotypes. When a certain architect says something about the site, the main client or the architect is like, "I don't think so," and the same thing is said by a certain person. Ah, yes, this sounds better. They also introduce us in this manner, meet the architect and the woman architect. Even while choosing like masters, some of them say that, "Don't you want to apply for landscape or conservation?" So they even stereotype. They do gender stereotyping through type of masters or profession they want to choose. And when Vinita, this is I think Vinita's sketch where she works on roofs in the western part of Maharashtra. So she does the roof work a lot, and she's always on the roof trying to design and make it work. So she gets a lot of these comments that, oh, women architects are also working on site. There are these talks which is fully male dominated, and then whenever there's a Women's Day special, there is always one speaker which is added just for the sake of a woman speaker hai, to let's do that. And of course, whenever something is published, this was really real. I mean, Devi Doshi was, of course, congratulated with his name, but two female architects win the Pritzker Prize in 2020. Uh, UN Farrell and Shelley McNamara. Again, usually when we are on stage, we usually ask these two names, but nobody knows them. And even now, I don't have the opportunity to ask. But yeah, that's how it was um, covered in the reporting. So yeah, that's something which we tried to talk, and of course, it definitely hit the audience, and they really uh, like that. Something is being talked about. So this was published in 2020, 3 years back. Urban issues, of course, we are very much inclined in urban design, and we are urbanists by nature. So we did a comic on urban design expectation versus reality, accessibility expectation, and the reality is that there is no public space. That's the expectation, and the public space is a mall. The roads, the expectation is that the roads are designed in such a way that it gives equal weightage to every the pedestrian, cycle, cars, etc., public transport, but it's always a chaos. Trees are part of the public life, but usually they are part of the development of the city. Riverfront is something, again, I know it's a very small sketch and we cannot judge, but yeah, this is something which we wanted to just show visually that how can riverfronts be and what is the reality. Safety, I mean, women safety, I would just say safety is eyes on the street, but then there are no eyes on the street. It's all, everything is compounded. Everything is secure inside, but there is no security outside. Smart cities is, of course, a very big topic, but what we get is free Wi-Fi and CCTV. Governance is something which we want, but like I already showed in one of the previous sketches, it's still work in progress. A last few comics which I'll be showing before we end. So of course, this is something which we made. It's called Aunties versus Architects, which is basically trying to critique what the architects do. So I'll of course not talk about what the architects tell. We already know what we talk about certain buildings. We want to know what the aunties say. If I throw a stone, will it break? This is Pompidou. What the architect forgot to hide the plumbing pipes. Zahadid, how do you go to the terrace? I am Ahmedabad. Are you not going to plaster this? Falling waters, there is a big leakage problem in this building. Guggenheim Museum, why did they waste so much aluminum foil? The Zahadid building, I think this is in Antwerp. Oh my god, this might fall on somebody, and it really looks like that, trust me. And of course, the fish building, and of course, everybody loves it except for architects. So that is something which is really thought provoking, that should we like just hate it for the sake of hating, but the other reality is that people actually love that building. So there was already a planned comic of aunties versus architects and uncles versus architects. It's just that when we published aunties versus architects, people started saying that, oh, you're stereotyping aunties and women, etc. And like we're like, no, there is one more comic which is there. So we made uncles versus architects. Let's of course look at what they have to say. When will you start painting this Villa Savoy? Church of Light Tadando, the window should have been bigger. There is no light inside. Of course, uncles. Demolish and build a new high rise before it falls on someone's head. How long will it take to reach the top? Burj Khalifa. Daniel Libeskind, these architects are ruining our heritage. Who knows? Maybe. And then the architects say, what is this disaster? Oh, this is, they have designed. So they are also, they sometimes think that they can design better. So they made this in the end. So we made this approach about their aunties and uncles thinking about what is architecture for them. And of course, we recently made this comic about it's a small tribute to BB Doshi. Of course, I mean it's a very simple comic. It just talks about one of his quotes, and we just tried to replicate it through his journey. And we just, of course, this is, I mean, not exactly scene to scene, but what we heard from many of his talks, and we just thought we can just like show his childhood where his grandfather was into furniture, and and he learned a lot from him. So love what you do and do what you love, and learn the art of constantly enjoying every minute of your life. So this talks about his entire journey of how the quote is actually completely relatable to what he has done in his entire life. So yeah, I mean, I was part of SEPT, and of course, we definitely looked at him more as a teacher, as an institution builder. That is something which we have always published about him. I mean, of course, his work is definitely good, but I think the respect which we've got for him in creating an institution which has really changed people's mind. This is not a SEPT plugin or something, but it's more about Doshi and his idea of building an institution where you really start to think about what is your role, and what actually makes you happy in life. So yeah, I mean, this is always going to be, we are indebted to him and everybody who's involved in making sept and that institute, and we always thought we will never stop making comics about him, and we will continue definitely even further. And then that's about it. That's what we do. We also sketch. I mean, of course, everything is hand sketch, but we thought let's show you some of these sketches which we've done. We just go and start writing stories and sketches and making sketches whenever we are somewhere. Everything is a content for us. Everything is all about observation. We have been published, of course. I mean, we can brag a bit, if not. I mean, we've done nothing at all. There's no awards, nothing. No, we are not part of any big group, or we don't even have a lot of public appearances. I don't know, maybe people have seen maybe me for the first time, or even Shreya. Both of us are actually introverts, and it's good that we don't see the audience. It's good for us to perform. We've been published in newspapers, and we made comics, and it sometimes it's about the work we do. Sometimes it's for a specific comic. We have been published by the Hindustan Times, First Post, The Hindu, etc., where they have either written on us or they have written on some of our comics. This was a comic about questioning the role of an architect after COVID-19. So that are we like still relevant? So that was covered by a lot of newspapers and magazines which are not from the architecture fraternity. So that is something which we always look forward to. We have been also featured in urban design magazines all around the world, and like I said, World Architecture Community, The Wire, Orville. We were also invited to Orville, and we did like a 6 7 day workshop, and we also presented our work. We are also part of a TEDx. I know TEDx becomes good to tell people who don't know or they don't believe in our work. So, for example, when we meet people and they say, "What happens in these comics?" We say that, "Okay, we are TEDx speakers." Oh, okay, okay, then you're good. So sometimes it is. I don't believe that we have to please people, but yeah, it was a good platform to share about what we do. It was not about architecture comics. It was about me being having social anxiety and being an introvert, and then comics becoming a way of expressing. So it was more about that. Um, we've been part of Me and Shreya have been part of a lot of initiatives with Architecture Live. We've worked on a gender parity graphic novel, which is still to be published, but it's still there. I don't know how much time I have, or have I taken more, but I think it's almost about to end. But yeah, we've been published on all of these portals. Some of them are architecture portals, LA Decor Italia, Arc Daily, Architecture Digest. The US one has published us. I don't know what they thought, but yeah, there have been some publications. And we also, for the past 4 or 5 years, we have been into more intense comics, which we do as workshops and um, collaborations with certain organizations where we come up with small graphic novels about the city. So this is about Chitpur, Kolkata. This was in South Korea. We went to a city called Mokpo. We made a small travelogue. It's a mix of urban design and a travelogue. We wanted to highlight the idea of travelogue not just being a travelogue, but more about an introspection about the city in terms of urban planning and urban design. We did this City for All graphic novel on the idea of inclusivity in the city. It focuses on gender and sexuality, and it was done with the Alliance Francaise. So many people who believe, very few people, but the few people who believe in these type of initiatives, we really love going and seeing the city and analyzing it. And then, of course, with students, sometimes alone. But we come up with these small graphic novels. This is the one which we made in South Korea. We went to Dhaka this year in February, and we made a graphic novel on the movement patterns of the city. We recently did a graphic novel with OMI Foundation, which is Ola Mobility Foundation Institute. It's a research organization which is part of Ola. So we made a graphic novel on the idea of um, how a woman moves in the city, especially in terms of public transport. So we made a very relatable narrative about a mother being concerned about her daughter moving to a new city, a bigger city, and then how she's safe and how does she travel in the entire city. Of course, of course, it is free for to download and even print, and even it's free. They've made it free for everybody, so you can have a look at it. We can share the link. It talks about all the issues the women face while moving around the city. And of course, just before finishing, a small comic about our profession. So my uncle used to show me that, like, it's time to get married, so let's meet some people. And then he's like, meet my nephew. I'm like, hi. I'm sorry. He always is like, he's an engineer, and I'm like, uncle, I'm an architect. And then he's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Meet my nephew. He's an architectural engineer. Thank you. I think yes, that was about it. I don't know how much time I have taken, but maybe not a lot.
No, I think it was a wonderful presentation, and even your talk. I mean, by no means we thought that you were an introvert, but I think you rightfully said that it might be an expression of yours,
Mm.
through your comics, through your creative side. So
Mhm.
thank you, Anuj, for giving us such beautiful insights into the works that we mostly always see on Instagram, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate how your thought process is, and the kind of witty and subtle humor that is represented through your comics. I think it even right now when you were presenting, we chuckled and we giggled, and I think that's the kind of yeah, it sort of it's a successful sort of creation.
Yeah.
By the way, I also wanted to ask you about your partner, that is Shreya, who is also the founding
Mm.
partner at Leewardists. So,
Yeah.
how did adding a female perspective help shape the narrative of your comics? And there's a lot of comics and illustrations that you post. They advocate women's role in the society and the community. So, I would really like to know more about it and how you two work
Mm.
together to create this sort of the outcome of it. So how exactly do you go about it?
Yeah, I think thank you for this question. I think this is one of the only questions which we have got from all the platforms which we are usually in, because to be very honest, when they see both of us, they always see that the man is on the forefront. See, I'm here because I'm maybe just a better speaker than her. That's it. Like, there's nothing. We both have our own pros and cons. But I mean, thank you for this question, because that is exactly one of the things which we also face a lot, where it's, you get it, like, it's so deep rooted in our entire journey and the history of looking at this profession, that they always see that the that we made a comic but we've not published. The man is sitting on the chair and the partner is at the back. I know
Mm.
if many people might get offended by this, but this is how it is if you look at any of the
Right.
photographs. And thank you again because uh, see, Leewardists uh, is an idea which could have been started by any one of us. It's just that it 1 or 2 years later she came, but the idea became stronger where it became more inclusive. I'm not even talking about inclusive in terms of cities or urban design. It became inclusive as even when we talk about characters or the type of topics which we talk about in architecture. So it became a wholesome thing where we became more aware. I definitely learned a lot, and we like you also mentioned that you have seen some of the comics which advocates a lot about. Like there's a comic about public toilets and women. That's something
Mm.
which, of course, I cannot write it. It's as obvious. It's written by her, of course. And the more I looked into that perspective, both of us became more stronger, more. Uh, the world became even bigger for us, and we are even grateful that we've met that now we can actually be more confident about talking about things because sometimes as a certain gender I am also afraid to talk about certain things because I seriously don't know. I mean, we are learning together. She's also learning about other things which maybe I face, and she's also talking about things. So it's a very good combination. Which the answer is simple. It now the journey and the the journey has become even longer for us because now we are like very
Mm.
wholesome in terms of talking about things. So yeah, I mean, thank you for the question, and I think the answer is as simple as it that you know the the team is such that we now are not afraid of anything, to be very honest.
Mm.
We can actually talk about anything, and there are no repercussions. I mean, the repercussions are maybe trolls or some people banning us or etc etc, but I think it's good that now we are actually a better team, like a better team. I mean, some of the people like the initial stuff, but that's not it. That's not it. That's not what Leewardist is. The evolution of
Mm.
the organization in terms of talking about things which are not being talked about is something which we are doing
Right.
even more.
Yes, I think it kind of gives us all as audience. I think it gives us all a very broad perspective, and both the sides. Like kind of shows both the sides of what is
Mm,
happening. And definitely, I personally resonate a lot to these kinds of comics that you just mentioned about.
mm,
With those. Women's perspective. Even I think there was a comic about women's safety or something, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but there was
yes.
a comic, I think, some
Yeah, I think
series
it
of that
was
sort.
around 7, 8 years back where the woman
Yes,
is moving from the center of the city to the outskirts of the city, and in every point, how is she feeling? I mean, that is
right.
not seen by anybody. So if you have seen that, thank you. I mean, that's that's
No,
something
no.
which nobody has seen.
No, I think some of the works actually stay with us, and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the success of the artists themselves. And
Mm,
regarding the trolls, I would say it definitely means that you're doing something right. So you should
mm,
definitely keep up with it. And
mm,
also, can you share some of your, some career advice for students or young professionals in architecture and
mhm,
design fraternity who would want to shift their paths towards this architectural web comics or illustrations and
mm.
actually earn through the medium of creativity?
Yeah. See, this question is very difficult to answer because the first thing which keeps us going is the initial thing is to find what you want to work on. I feel sometimes it is also deceiving to know that, oh, this is what I want to do. Sometimes I think a lot of times you don't know that is this the thing, and even if you know that okay, this is the thing which I want to do, it evolves and it
Mhm.
will. It does not change. It will evolve. to the first thing which we did in 2016 versus 2023, there's a lot of evolution which we never thought of. So even talking about finances, etc., before that, it's always important to first find out that is this something which I will want to do for the rest of my life? Is this something which will make me displaced? Like we always tell students that is there something which you do in your college whenever you're in the college? Is there something which displaces your time? Like, oh, it's 4 o'clock. What did I do? How did
Mhm.
4 hours spend? Or somebody was calling me and I was like, oh, sorry, you were calling me. There are certain hints, many of such hints, which help you first identify that what I want to do. So that is the first step. And the second step is, of course, I mean, although we don't want to use the word business as like a word, because business can also mean that it can become a corporate thing, right? I mean, we could have definitely become something which were part of investors, etc. But we choose to have a small team with minimal overheads. Everything is work from home. We also have patterns where we do freelance versus we also have certain interns employees. So we also designed the studio in such a way that we are always free to think and open to do whatever we want to. We should never be stuck with these ideas of, Arey, no, no, we cannot do that because there is something to be taken care of.
Mhm.
Because this will always keep the sanctity. See, the messages which we get are only because of the type of studio which we have maintained. It
Mhm.
touches the audience because there is a certain business model which is there, which is very, I would say, lean. It's very lean. It's on the go. There are no certain set things. The overheads are okay. It's not like very high. It's okay, and that is also something which we worked around in the past 4 to 5 years, where we try to keep it lean so that we always are the creativity and the ideas and the journalism is always in the forefront, because if that is gone, then whatever amount of money we earn is, I think, of no use for us. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it's a bit difficult to answer, but I hope the audience gets it.
Yeah, I think that creative freedom should always be maintained by the artists. I think that
Yeah,
should be the end goal. So,
yeah, and I think artists
yeah,
also, just to add one sentence, that artists are
yes,
always
yes,
looked
please,
as
please.
these people with the jhola and they're not
Yeah.
earning, because I think that is a stereotype. It's not true at all.
Mhm.
If you have certain uh, like
Ability, skills.
standards and you could create, you I would say the word is, try to document your, like, the word is not document, the word is formalize to a certain extent, so that when people approach us, or when we do collaborations, they know that okay, they are a serious organization. Whatever is the number,
Mhm.
10, 5, 2, whatever is the number, the system which we have is something which protects us in terms of course, finance. So that is something which is required, because like I said, the stereotype of an artist is like with the jhola and not earning, and is going, that person is roaming around, and that's why all the parents don't want. I mean,
Right.
of course. I mean, I don't have to say it or give any um, article which says that they don't want their kids to be artists. They don't want art school. But I think times are changing and people are becoming more aware about how they can make it into a business and formalize it in a certain way that there is, of course, a certain amount of finance which is generated.
Right, right. I think most people are, very convenient with the conventional kind of fields of
Yeah,
earning. So even if it's a 10,000 like per month, if it's a 10,000 rupees paying job, they would rather choose it than just get in a business or something
exactly.
that they're passionate about. But I think
Mm.
more and more people are opening up their minds to this kind of ideology, the one
Yeah.
that you mentioned. So that's
Mm.
amazing. And I think this session would definitely add more clarity to them and inspire many of them, I'm really sure. So
Yeah.
also last question, like what are your future goals and and with respect to technology as well, like how
Mm-hmm.
exactly are you trying to combine it and
Mm.
uh, Yeah. So what's next
Oh
for
yeah,
you?
I think yeah I already had mentioned in the presentation that social media sometimes restricts us to write stories which are uh, really like long and which are we really want to talk about it, and social media definitely restricts us. I mean, everybody knows that. So the idea is to write longer stories. The idea is not to publish them. The idea is to, like I said, can there be a script about an architect, which can be a movie, right? So the idea is
Mm-hmm.
to write stories which have a pop culture or a relatability factor which can be understood by everyone. That's always been our aim, that can design or architecture be understood by common people. So the thing which we are working on currently, it's a very slow and a very uh, sometimes it's very frustrating also, because writing long stories for yourself, right? I mean, there's no collaborator or anybody who's there. Of course, we have a very good mentor, architect Ritu Deshmukh from Navi Mumbai, who always helps us and mentors us time to time. But yeah, writing stories which can be converted into something very big and at a global level. And comics is not the um, you know it's just a way of representation. So
Right.
stories are at the base. So we want, and we are writing a lot of stories. Like we wrote for Ola, we wrote for Alliance Francaise. So those are something which we are focusing on. And with shift to technology, I mean, yes, definitely we are also exploring that. Print media is of course not the only thing which is there. I mean, 15 years back, print media was a thing, but yeah, things have already been moving in a way where AI can also write scripts.
Yeah.
Well, as in a script of a story, they can also do that.
Yes,
But of course,
yes.
I mean, it's still evolving. We tried it on ChatGPT and other platforms. We've tried a lot, but they are still like, no, they are not good stories. But for some people, they might be good stories. But yeah, um, we are exploring. I mean, we are at a very experimentative stage and evolution phase where the focus is always on writing stories. What can be the representation of that is something which we're figuring out, because like I said, comic is just one way of representing
Yes.
the story which we have. So I think it's been, of course, a very hard 1 year, because writing stories, longer stories, is very difficult. It's been a very hard time creatively, but I think we've moved on and we've learned a lot of things about writing stories, etc. And I think we've learned a lot. So, yeah, I mean, we're just experimenting that we should not only stick to comic as a final thing. The base is always going to be like we've understood one thing, that writing stories, like Gulzar, right? Like he writes good
Mm.
stories. So we figured out that stories is something which we should focus on more, because the output can be a film, a short film, an animation, a comic, a photo, anything. It can be anything. So I think that's something which we're focusing on. And like we already showed you some of the graphic novels, we're focusing a
Mm.
lot on city planning, urban design issues, etc. You've seen some of those. So yeah, that's something which is background. It's not on social media. It's a very background work which we're doing, and it requires some time, and we don't want to publicize it and publish it. So yeah, that's something which we are experimenting with.
Okay. That's a very, regarding the storytelling and regarding the writing part, I think that's a very noble kind of idea. But
Mm.
yeah, I think I would surely wish you all the best. And you
Thank
have
you.
been amazing, you and Shreya both. And I think the next time we would love to have you both. And
Yeah,
thank
definitely.
you. Yeah, thank you so much again. I'm sorry, I must have just let me know if I'm audible.
Yeah, you're audible. It's just the video which is there,
Okay,
but it's fine. I mean, your wishes have
um,
reached us.
okay, yes, yes. There must have been some network connection issue. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, I was saying, I think the presentation was amazing. Even the talk and the candid conversation that we just had, I think got a lot of insights and a lot of layers into which you work and you think, both of you. So yeah, looking
Thank you
forward
so much.
to more such associations and collaborations, and wish you both the best. And yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here at IDA 3.0.
Yeah, I know I've been very tough to get in touch with because we are traveling a lot. So I'm extremely sorry for that because we are right now in Chandigarh. So it's been chaotic, but yeah, I'm glad we're always, like we really want to talk with people. We really want to talk with the audience and just tell them what we do. And it's always a pleasure to be here. And thank you to the entire team for. It has been smooth. Trust me, this has. I was a bit finicky about this entire thing because I did not know. But yeah, it has been very smooth, and thanks to you and the entire team, Siddharth, Vanessa, whoever I've get in touch with. So thank you very much, and I hope it made an impact. Thank you again.
Definitely, definitely. Looking forward to your comments on Chandigarh now. So, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe.
Okay, thank you and have a great day and a great trip.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.